Okay, here we are with the Emrit crew asking a bunch of questions and getting some background on one of the biggest players in the helium market. So Harumi and Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick. We are happy to be here. We are actually very much looking forward to this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, me too. Welcome. Let's start with kind of your guys' background, and then we'll go into Emrit. Harumi, I'll start with you. Is like, what do you do at Emrit? What's your job there?
Yeah, I joined Emrit as the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, just about 2 months ago. I was previously working for another crypto company, but I really believe in this infrastructure put together with the crypto, where this industry is going real deeply. So I decided to join this one.
Cool. And then what's the financial background?
Yes.
Where did you?
Oh yeah. So I started out my career in the traditional finance. So I started out as an investment banker many years ago when I started to just work. My first job was derivatives trading with one of the bulge bracket firm. And a lot of what I noticed is that a lot of people who started or who were in the derivatives field actually inevitably ended up in the crypto world, because I guess this is the ultimate derivatives in the financial services today.
Okay. Cool. So all roads lead to crypto from derivatives.
Absolutely.
All right. Dig it. And then Andrew, what do you do at Emrit?
Yeah, so I am the head of marketing. I've been with Emrit about 5 months now, which has been quite the exciting ride so far, and looking forward to a really exciting 2022. My background is I've been doing marketing for all different kinds of companies for about 25 years. I started my career in New York City at an advertising agency, McCann Erickson. I worked on brands like Coca-Cola. Verizon Wireless was my first foray into the telecom space.
Dang, okay.
Then
Big dogs.
Well, not only have I worked on Verizon, I've worked on Sprint, I've worked on T-Mobile, all the majors except for AT&T, which incidentally, my brother has worked for AT&T over 20 years. But then I went to 𝗚𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗵𝗏, another large advertising agency, where I hit a bunch more telecom companies. And then about 3 years ago, I went to my first startup, which was another blockchain company in the wireless space. And then the opportunity came with Emrit, and looking into helium and seeing how exciting that space is kind of pulled me in, and here we are.
Dig it. Yeah. And as a point of interest, if you didn't recognize the 𝗚𝗿𝗏 name, they're kind of one of the most famous marketers of all time. And they've got this rad ad. It's like, they laughed when I sat down at the piano and then I began to play. And it was this whole thing teaching people how to play piano, but it was one of the most successful, I think, ad campaigns of all time. So super cool that you worked there and you've got that history.
Yep. It was a great 12 years.
I'll bet. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the first thing I'm getting from this is that Emrit is probably not a small company if it's bringing people like you guys on. I'm not getting the vibe that you guys are brand new to the world. This is kind of pretty experienced, like maybe a pretty deep bench. So let's go back then and talk about what Emrit is and how it started. Because there's lots of questions about it. Everyone kind of wonders who's behind it, what started it, what drove it. Give me a little bit of the history.
Yeah, no, Harumi, do you want me to tackle it, or you want to?
Yeah, no, it's actually a great story to tell, and I want to hear you, Andrew, present that story.
Absolutely. So incidentally, the company was started by an 11-year-old. 𝗵𝗵 was a enthusiast in cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, Ethereum, and his parents, who were both VCs in the blockchain space, encouraged that. And what that ended up doing was he invested about $50,000 in helium gateways when it started, before anyone knew helium was going to be big.
Okay, so he's an 11-year-old kid.
11-year-old kid. They spent $50,000 to deploy helium gateways, the original OG units in Atlanta, lighting up Atlanta with an IoT network. And they figured out this is actually a little bit bigger than kind of a side hobby. So that's when they started bringing in some professional management, a lot of folks in the startup space. This was in 2020, and the business just kept taking off. As helium was being mined, that money was coming in, going into more inventory, because as you know, we have a free model where we send the hotspots for free. We take 80% of the H&T, and we were giving our customers 20%. Now, early on, and Nick, I know you know this, and most of your audience know very well, particularly in the first half of 2020, people were getting a lot of helium, and I think that was when it was in the single digits. So, the 20/80 split actually worked fairly well for quite a long time. What we have found is going into the fall, and particularly after the halvening, a lot of miners were coming online. A lot of our customers' earnings were starting to go down. So what we decided to do, and what we're launching actually this month, is new product tiers where we're increasing the revenue share to 50% from 20%. And we are asking for a one-time subscription fee of $199 per miner, which is roughly, as you know, the retail cost, assuming you can get one, is about $600. So you're talking about roughly 33% of the retail price to get 50% of the earnings. And, we believe in helium in the long term. Sure. We see the opportunity.
Okay, hang on a second. Let's go back to this 11-year-old kid, because that's definitely probably not worth skipping, or not something to skip past. So 11-year-old kid with 50 grand, that's pretty unusual. To me, that sounds like the parents, I'm guessing the kid just didn't mow lawns and make 50 grand. The parents are like, hey, this is, this kid gets interested in it. The parents are like, okay, we'll kind of back that play. As all parents want to support their kid. And then the thing starts to grow. So 50,000 buys how many initial helium units when they make their first investment?
I don't know the exact number, but I could tell you it was definitely a couple of hundred.
Right. Because the units then, if they bought in 2020, if they're buying off rack, I think the market price was, I don't know, $400 or $500. So let's just say you get 2 per 1,000. And you guys you bought in bulk. I think bulk orders are probably cheaper. Let's say you got 3 per 1,000. So what is that? 50,000 times 3, 150,000 units. Is that right?
No, it's not.
Or is my public math really
units.
that bad?
It's definitely not 150,000 units.
Yeah. I try not to do public math because I get so excited.
No, absolutely. I would say you're probably looking at roughly, I would say it was probably 150 to 200 units
that would be my estimate too.
Oh, okay. So I'm just doing my math backwards.
Exactly.
That's embarrassing, but there it is.
Yeah. But division, the other side.
Yeah, division. Thank you. Yeah, maybe I should go back to school. Okay, so you guys start with 200 units, which, I mean, still, that's not a small amount of money, and that's not a small amount of units. And was there, I guess from the beginning, was there the thought that the family would do the deployment themselves, or was it always like, hey, we're going to invest in the space and we're going to figure out a model for getting these into the hands of other people?
Yeah, what I would say is initially it was a friends and family effort with the initial deployment. And at that point, when they started seeing all of the H&T coming in, which, as you know, I mean, it was worth pennies at that time, that's when they decided this is a really interesting use case for blockchain. And that's where they decided to start investing capital to start scaling those deployments and really pushing out the devices to the general public.
Yep. So let me see. I want to make sure I'm understanding. So it was in 2020 that they made the first order? And like what part of 2020? Is that early or was it 2019?
It was 2019 when they started.
2019. Okay, so super early. So HNT in 2019 is under $1 probably?
Yep.
I remember in early 2020, I was talking to a guy and he had said he and another dude were arguing about how much he should sell his HNT for. And he wanted I think 21 cents, and the guy wanted to pay 19 cents, and so they didn't do the deal. So just as kind of reference and perspective for folks who are looking at HNT now, which as of today it's tanking a little bit, but even tanked, it's $26, and it's been as high as 60 in the last month or two. So very different time. So when it's low, these guys go in, they put their 50 G's in, they get their 150, 200 units, whatever it is. They realize that it's maybe a little bit bigger problem than they can solve with friends and family. They got the VC background, so they're not dummies when it comes to business and working with money. And so they figure out a model that works for them at the time and seems to work for customers too, of giving away a free miner and then taking 80% of the cut. That's kind of how the whole story arc goes.
Yeah, and I think from a strategic perspective, it makes sense because remember, early on, people had no idea what helium was, whether it was going to be successful or not. So the thinking was, let's just give these devices away for free and kind of see what happens. I think if deploying a paid model at that point early on, I think could have been a bit more challenging.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yep. Okay, cool. So that makes sense from a business perspective, especially if you've got 50 grand and you can spend it without missing a meal. Like, all right, that seems like a reasonable risk, especially if you're looking at the big cryptocurrency market and seeing in general, there's nothing like this that has an interaction with the physical world. So risky, but in the world of crypto, kind of a pretty safe bet. No one else would consider it safe, but those of us
depending on
crypto
your
land,
right?
Yeah, see that is like, okay, that's a reasonable risk. So they start shipping the units, and then with the 80% HNT they're getting back, how does that grow? Like, how many units end up getting shipped out, let's say throughout 2020?
I think we don't want to comment publicly in terms of the size of the fleet overall. What I could tell you is we have more than 10,000 units out in the field. We're looking to substantially grow that. And, really the idea is partnering with our hosts for the long term because, we see helium in the long game. It's really about data transfer. We think that helium has solved this cold start problem. When you see all of the enterprises and you see city of San Jose starting to get online, we want to partner with hosts that are in it for the long term. That's why we want to do a 50-50 split because we think that's a very equitable split that works for both us as well as the host. Now that helium is very established, we think it's more appropriate to ask for a little bit of skin in the game. But having said that, we want the barrier to entry of helium mining to be relatively low because the reality is people can go out and if you could get your hands on a miner, I would recommend not buying them on the secondary market, which is very dangerous, as you know. But if you are investing, that much, there's a lot of people that are going to say, I want 100% of the earnings. I'm doing it myself. And that's fantastic. But for people who are just starting to get into cryptocurrency, but they're serious about it, we want to give them an option that de-risks that, initial $600 investment and really give them an opportunity in the long term to earn HNT. Because where we used to look at it in the first half of 2021, where people were making thousands of dollars a month, which was fantastic. And it was a glorious time for helium mining, certainly. The way that we look at it now is if you're earning 10, 20, 30 H&T over a year, you're leaving it in the wallet. As the network continues to expand commercially, the valuation of that H&T is going to rise. And, after a few years, you might be putting a kid through college if everything works out. So, I think that's kind of the profile of the types of hosts that we're looking for. And we're also happy to scale with hosts because we don't have a, one device per customer policy. We have a lot of customers that will deploy multiple devices. And, we love these types of hosts because they're serious about the mining. They're keeping the devices online. And, at the end of the day, it's just as important to us and our hosts to kind of keep the H&T flowing. So, that's really how we're trying to position, H&T as an investment to our customers.
Dig it. Okay. So the first big thing with Emrit, I mean, so far from kind of our perspective as we're talking about it, sounds like a pretty reasonable company. And it's like, oh, why wouldn't you do it? But definitely in the summer of 2021, spring and summer of 2021, there was a lot of, call it negative sentiment towards Emrit. And I was seeing in Discord that people were talking about, oh, I see an Emrit hotspot down the street. I'm going to, what are they called? Cool spots? Or is that something else?
Cool spots.
Yep. I mean, I'm going to go down and talk to that person and tell them they're getting ripped off and they're getting 20% when they should be getting 80%. I think I can see both sides of this. I think on the Emrit side, you guys are running it like a business would run it, is that you put in the initial capital expense, you bought all the miners, you send them out. It sounds like you reinvested the money that you got from selling HNT into more miners. Maybe it came from some other place and kept kind of building the network and allowing the network to grow. And I can see it from the kind of the people side where they're saying, hey, why am I only getting 20%? I'm providing one of the most valuable aspects, which is the location. At what point did you guys decide to go from the 80-20 split to the 50-50? Is that super recent, or is that not happened yet, or that's happening? Like where does that happen in the?
Yeah, so it's actually happening right now. As you could imagine, the demand for helium miners is significant right now. So we have a pretty large backlog of customers. So we actually started this week emailing people on our wait list and giving them the $199 offer for the miners. So that has launched already. We're going to do a larger marketing launch of that in Q1. But before we go and start opening up the offer to the general public, we want to make sure that we take care of the people that have been patiently waiting, some of them for many months. But you asked the question of when did the idea come out? It actually, I had joined in September. And we were already talking about it very actively when I joined. We would have liked to have done it sooner. What we actually did launch in November was a program we called the Emrit Raise. So that was upgrading hosts who had been with us for 1 year with a 90% uptime. And the way we define that is that they were earning HNT for 328 days out of 365. Which basically means that you're actively monitoring it and keeping it online. They went
how much? Hang on a second. How much of the fleet was that? Because a lot of that was out of people's control. Was that? Yeah, it was. How much of the fleet of the Emrit fleet had been up 90% of the time?
I would say we ran an analysis, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40%. That's why we decided to offer another option to upgrade for customers that haven't hit that milestone. And that's going to be something we're going to launch in the next 2 weeks, where for $99, they can go from 20 to 50%, which will happen, instantaneously.
So they can kind of buy into a higher percentage now.
We wanted to provide something for everybody. And I will say this, Nick, when we look at customers who ask us and say, hey, have I hit the 90% uptime? We will look at that. And if they are very close, we understand that there are things that happen beyond our customers' control. Networks down. So it's really, if it's close, you're going to get it. If it's very far off, that's where we, push them towards the $99 upgrade.
Okay, cool. So you're being kind of on the business side, like a pretty reasonable business, right? Is that you're not in this for charity. You're not giving money away. You're in there to earn a profit, just like any other business. But if someone's close, you're like, hey, we'll give you a pass. Because basically for most of those people who are, let's say, I'm not sure where the number is, I'll just make a guess. And like that, even the 80 to 90% range, and I might be off on that. Those are my numbers, not your numbers. Like that's probably not their fault. That's probably something to do with the Helium network just being so chaotic as it grew so fast. So I don't know where you put that number, and that may be private to you, but that's pretty cool. Another private number. What's the open rate on emails for Emrit at this point? Or is that something you guys keep secret?
We are probably in the 50% range from what I'm saying.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, what I would say is we're just starting to ramp up a lot of our technology stack, particularly in the marketing automation field. So, this was one of the things that we are really making investments so we could communicate more clearly with our customers. As you could imagine, a startup moving very quickly. A lot of our systems have been invested in fairly significantly in the last couple of months. So we've really been making a focus on improving that customer service, including the emails.
Right. Because I mean, in the beginning, the customer service was the big complaint. But before we get to that, and I think it's pretty reasonable, but we'll get to it, is Harumi, can you walk me through kind of where the money went? So Emrit's taken 80%. That is in the beginning. I mean, that turns out to be a ton of HNT. And if they held it until HNT was in the 20 to 30 range, which is they only had to hold it for a couple months, that ends up being a lot of money. Can you walk me through where that ends up going as to the extent of your ability as a private company?
Yes, absolutely. So I can talk about this at the high level, but and anybody would understand that running a company. So first of all, as Andrew stated, the de-risking factor is what's provided by doing that profit split, right? And then in order for us to make sure that our hosts stay safe and everything goes smoothly, that does require a lot of system development, people hiring, communication, stuff of those nature. And then that's actually where a lot of that HNT went. And then let's put this into perspective. Yes, I mean, HNT was very expensive at the beginning, but also the number of hosts was very, very small. And we were going from basically 0 employee to 20, 30 employees in a very short period of time. And it's not just the overhead of people, but like I said, there's a system development and taking care of the shipment itself. All these things do cost money. So we actually indeed do reinvest into our community, for that matter, in most cases, by doing all that work behind the scenes. So yeah, I mean, HNT provided a lot of value, but that value, a lot of it, what was split back into Emrit, actually went back right into the community. I think I can definitely say that with a straight face on.
Yeah. So when you're saying it went back into the community, did that go to some? I'm hearing that went to pay for more hotspots and also to pay for. It's like there's an Emrit dashboard. I don't have an Emrit, so I'm not sure what the back end looks like. But there's a specific kind of set of software you guys have put up for hosts and for you? Is
Absolutely.
that right?
There are a lot of different systems. I mean, Andrew is taking care of all the marketing related, Marcom related systems, right? And then that by itself, I mean, for Andrew to be able to say, our open click-through rate is 50%. I mean, that, the fact that he has that kind of statistics, we actually, without thinking about it, we throw these numbers around, right, in our day-to-day communication. But there are people behind the scene who are working very hard to make sure that these systems work. And then that's, that's just the Marcom aspect of it. And then there are systems that we use to make sure that the payment goes out at the beginning of the month. There are monitoring systems to make sure that nothing happens to your device, the system that monitors to make sure that nothing happens to HNT as it comes through the blockchain. There are money that makes sure that we can stay working behind the scene, right? So those are effectively all going back to the community. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then there was a problem certainly early on, and I would just hear about it just being a mod in Discord, is seeing people saying, "Oh, Emrit hasn't paid me," or "They're not paying me," or whatever it was. Can you walk me through what that looked like on your end, as far as like how much of the community or the hosting customers you had that weren't getting paid on time, and then B, kind of how many of those people have been made right, and maybe whoever's left, like what are you doing for those guys? Sorry for the question.
Absolutely. So, I mean, let's first make it clear that our intention is to make sure that everybody gets paid and everybody gets the right amount in time, right? But just like any sort of initial growing pain, there are a lot of things that we learn, we develop, and then we improve as the time goes by, right? So basically, generally at the very high level, what happens is towards the end of the month, we gather all the data, right? Which we did not necessarily even have at the beginning in a very organized manner. And then we are developing the system to make sure that we can automate more and more. First of all, to make sure that we have all the relevant data. That's a starting point, right? And then, sort of, we are trying to automate as much as we can. So there are no mistakes, there are no delays, but those things do take time and resources. To make sure that we can gather the data and pump that data into And then because there are some manual checks that go into the system yet, that go into kind of checking that wallet count yet, they're basically like in a very manual sort of visual. There's actually a person who's dedicated to go through every single data, every single wallet, every month still. Yeah, believe it or not. Make sure that there are no duplicates, there are no wrong addresses. And then there are some people who switch the wallet address from time to time, right? By closing down one account and opening another in the app, or sort of like a duplicate name that comes as something that we need to manually check. All these things, believe it or not, get picked up at the beginning of the month once the data closes and it comes to the finance side. And like I said, we do manual check on every single one of them. Probably, I would say 60 to 80%, depending on which months we are looking at, are very fresh, if you will. Ones that don't have any issues, and we can pay out pretty much immediately after the data comes in, and we kind of give it one check, right? And then we can pay out. But it's the other 20 to 30% that do require, are there some kind of duplicate records? Some people change the wallets, and then it seems like it went to the old one somehow because that update did not happen properly. All these things do happen. So as long as, the blockchain itself is still growing, and there are no, we go to the Fed wire, press the button, and then the money goes out, and automatically in just a half an hour it's going to be there. It's not that kind of paying environment yet. And then and I totally understand. The hosts work very hard for us to make sure that the devices are up and running all the time, and that this could mean somebody's well-being, and financial well-being is very important for me personally, and then obviously it's very important for the company. We want to make sure that everybody gets paid timely, but at the same time, we are going through that kind of growing pain. A lot of manual work is going into place. So I do appreciate your patience, and obviously, if there's something wrong, if you notice something, definitely give us a shout. But it's not like we are trying to hide anything. We are trying to take away something from you. It's just that pain that we're going through right now.
Yeah. No, I think it's hard if you're the one who's not getting paid to understand this, as objectively as possible. Like, it's easy for me to get it because I'm not affected by this. But man, I can see that someone who got a minor and they're not getting paid and they're seeing everyone around them, they're getting super worried about it.
But Nick, I think I'm going to say this. I'm a CFA charter holder, and then I have been in the finance business for all my life. And I'm going to use a little bit of a technical term, but fiduciary duty, something that I take very seriously. What that means is, for any companies that deal with, customer money, the customers have to come first. That's something that I take very seriously. And then consequently, everything that we do out of sort of my area, it runs on the same philosophy, right? So
and so it's this fiduciary duty. That's a common thing in the world of finance, and it just means that you have an obligation to your customers to make sure that they're financially taken care of, that the agreement that has been made is met. Right? That's am I understanding that right?
Correct. So, technically speaking, for the company to be fiduciary, you are compliant with many things, and we are not one of those companies, right? We are not like a financial services in that sense. But what I'm saying is, personally, I take fiduciary duty very seriously, and I act as such. And then that's always going to be one principle that we are going to be running our money based on. But in order for the hosts to get the payment that goes out on the day one of the next month, that does require a lot of coordination. So it's going to be
if you've got 10,000 plus hotspots, anyone who's got a wallet of hotspots knows that. Even my little fleet with the couple hosting agreements I have, it's still a pain in the ass for me to do it. So for you guys, you have to automate this stuff. How many people at this point, like where are we, January 21st, 2022, how many customers do you think you have left who have some kind of problem? Is there like a percentage or a number where you're like, man, we still have to get these guys squared away and taken care of?
Andrew, you want to take that, and then I'll supplement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As Ruby knows, as the head of marketing, I am on the front line with my team on Discord, managing this. In fact, a lot of what we do in marketing at Emrit is very tied to customer service, including our marketing automation systems, which include our customer ticketing platform, et cetera. I can tell you that it is dozens of people. There are some legacy hosts that we've been working with for a long time. I talk to a lot of them myself on a daily basis on Discord. Bryce, our community manager, also works hand in hand with a lot of these guys. And, the reality is, to 𝗺𝗻𝐵's point around systems, the hosts that are tending to have the problems are older hosts that had come in our original systems where the data always wasn't so together. So that manual process of mapping things, and I could tell you one of the things, it's not that these hosts don't necessarily get paid at all. It might be they're getting paid on a monthly basis, but there's some outstanding referral payments that they're owed because we have a referral program. And that right now we're actually doing a fairly large mapping exercise to once and for all kind of figure that out and pay, to 𝗺𝗻𝐵's point, everyone appropriately. I would say a lot of our hosts are very understanding. And one of the reasons why, and you'll even see them defend us on Discord when some people come in and complain, is that they know that we will do right by them. And they'll say things like, look, just hang in with Emrit. It might take them a little bit of time, but we'll do right. And, I wish that I could give every host an exact date and say, you're going to be paid on this date. It's more so we kind of nurture that. We encourage, hey, reach out to us. It's okay. Ping us. We can look into it. But, we have a list of all of those people and we are methodically going through it. I don't want to make any promises and any timelines. What I can tell you is since I joined 5 months ago, the amount of progress that has happened with payments and the improvement on our payment accuracy as well as timeliness has grown significantly. It's really a couple of these legacy issues. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean, to 𝗺𝗻𝐵's point, we go through and usually roughly 70%, 65% are going out within the first couple of days. What you'll hear on Discord are some of the people where we're doing these checks and, we're looking at technology solutions in our product offering to help. For example, the one thing that really can be tricky is the wallet change, because there are instances where wallet has changed. It actually could have been something that happened on the back end. It could have been user error on the host's behalf.
Sure.
And what we don't want to do is we don't want to pay them to the old wallet because then that money is gone. And, our philosophy is let's make sure it's right. And if we pay you towards the end of the month, we'd rather pay you accurately than, mispay it. Now, having said that, if it's our fault and we mispaid it, then we're still going to make that right for the host because that's not their fault. But because of that responsibility, that's why we've been more careful. But I don't want to, this is 𝗺𝗻𝐵's area and she's managing this very deftly. But I can tell you, we are automating a lot of this and, hopeful that on the earlier side in 2022, that we will eliminate a lot of these problems as a lot of our investments in our systems are finally come to fruition and have these startup growing pains be a thing of the past.
Sure. Yeah. 𝗺𝗻𝐵, anything to add to that?
I don't think so. I think Andrew explained it well. All I can say at this time is I really appreciate your patience and, please, allow us to grow up. I will grow up with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool message, and that's reasonable. I mean, I just talked to Parley Labs the other day. They had some tremendous growing pains as well. I think that's just part of being in this system, is that the biggest companies are going to have the biggest problems because these are giant challenges we're facing, and we're all figuring out how to do it together. It may seem more or less unfair for certain people to be offline or to not get their HNT in time, but I don't know. It doesn't appear to me so far that the companies, at least that I've talked to, are doing anything nefarious. Everyone's just like, holy shit, this is a bigger problem than we thought, and then they're working to fix it. Okay, so is Emrit is it the biggest hosting company in Helium, or is there one that you can think of that's bigger?
Again, because none of us are making the numbers publicly available, right? Like how many we host and
Right.
stuff like that. We're
Right.
not going to make any official claim, but unofficially, I would say,
Yeah.
I mean, of the company that is in this nature, I can't even think of a company that comes close second in terms of generally how many I think they are getting the stock out
Right.
there. That's my feel by looking at the numbers, and then I'm
Sure.
looking at the funding situation every day, right? So I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
much I can say.
Cool. Andrew, anything on top of that? Or
Yeah,
I mean, it seems to me like you guys are far and away the biggest.
Yeah, I think what we can say is we're one of the earliest adopter of helium and one of the earliest deployers at scale. I think that's fair to say. But for us, and as we look to grow, and obviously I'm very much involved with the growth strategy as the head of marketing, we're looking to grow healthily. And,
Right.
and it's even like we're having conversations about what our return policy is, because what we want to offer our hosts, and Nick, you know this very well, the reality is people are going to buy miners. They might be in a location that is just not a good location. And no matter how well they manage that machine, the earnings aren't going to be there. So we want, if that is the case, or for example, you set up your miner, you're stuck in relay mode and you're not going to change your ISP for you to run that miner, that would be a situation where we would actually want the customer to be able to return that device. And, we're happy to redeploy it. There's plenty of demand because, we've learned a lot. And the reality is there are a lot of hosts that are earning very little, hence why we're increasing our earning share and trying to make that more equitable in the current dynamics. But, we really want to find the right hosts where it's going to be mutually beneficial. I don't know that growing as fast as we can in terms of the number of units deployed and defining size like that is what our primary focus. It's really how can we contribute to the network? And if we're placing devices in locations that are earning well, that means it's doing well for the Helium community and it's really adding to the IoT network. And ultimately, we want to be earning H&T based on data passing through the network rather than just
that's where it's got to go.
POC. So.
Yeah. Are you guys doing anything to screen people who buy it and saying, hey, show me the location you're going to deploy it, and doing any kind of assessment on that? Or are you still at the phase where like, hey, if you want it, we'll send it out to you and then you figure out for yourself if it's good or not?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We do have a proprietary algorithm that we use that basically measures the density of that specific location.
Sure.
We have gone through a couple of different generations of this. I think what I would say, from the marketing perspective and trying to kind of make these determinations of who do we send a 𝗚𝗿𝗏 to versus who do we not, we are very transparent on our website. We do tell people that, certain locations are just not good earning areas. So you may not get a 𝗚𝗏𝗏 even if you sign up for it. Now, having said that, it's a tough decision because you can have instances where there's locations that are in highly dense areas where the miner actually can do fairly well because there's a lot of volume. It depends on, are you high on a roof or high in a tall building in the middle of Manhattan? Totally. And at the same time, we've seen what we would call lone wolves, where people are in suburban areas where the score would be low when we would send it out, but then within a month or two, a couple of hotspots come online, and that machine all of a sudden is actually earning fairly well. So it's a bit of a moving target. I would say we use our algorithm to guide us, but we are also looking at, ways that we can cluster specific orders, target certain areas, because again, it's about the strength of the network. If Helium is healthy, if the network is working well and it's getting the use cases, that's just going to benefit the community. So we do feel, given our, position with the community, that it is the right thing to do to try and control that as best as we can. And at the end of the day, the last thing we want is someone gets a miner, it's earning nothing, they're spending that time, because we see what happens. They get, disillusioned, and they'll end up quitting the mining. And if we
That's such a nice way of saying
it,
they get pissed. There's like, where's my money? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure.
I think Nick, you were asking about like where did the money go, and then it's really all about like us having a certain sort of like very systematic ways to figure out the best way we can run business and we can grow it with the community. And then there are soft side of the business that is like human interpretation that comes together with the system that we build, and then make sure that we are doing right by the community, right?
Sure.
That's something that we do on a day-to-day basis. And then on that note, I want to kind of address the previous question a little bit further as well. As Andrew was touching upon the hardware aspect of it. So, I mean, I was kind of jokingly saying a few things earlier, but on a serious note, right? I mean, this is a company that is dealing with both hardware business and software business side. And then there aren't that many companies that do both of them very well and leverage that for the client's benefits, right? So that is something that, I think we all need to be kind of like, letting the thoughts sink into our head, who actually can build a good relationship with all these manufacturers so that we can get the best price, not for us, but for our end hosts, right? To start.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody, right? Is that you're running a business, like there's got to be value all the way down the line. It can't be. And
then in between, like we're building all these like internal systems to make sure that we can address all clients' needs faster, better, more accurate, and then all the rest of the human touch that goes into it, like sort of Andrew looking after from the marketing, communication, human touch, right? People touch every day, and then me kind of like kind of looking at the money every day and say, okay, we are going to do this right now. Come on, right now we are going, right? So all these things are really kind of going to the picture to make sure that our hosts at the end of the day get the best treatment.
Yep. I mean, everybody's got to win. Okay. So let's see. A common comparison that I've seen with Emrit is to the Fairspot, to 𝗵𝗁's gig, which is a super cool project in very broad terms. I think they also did a free hotspot. I think they had a 70-30 split in favor of the customer. Man, I hope I'm not getting that wrong. And people were like, hey, if 𝗵𝗁 can do it and he can make money, and he said publicly, he's like, yeah, this is super profitable. I don't think he's psyched on Emrit in general, but maybe that'll change after this with the split changing. Is that a fair comparison? And B, what are the big differences that you see between the way the two companies are run?
Yeah, I mean, I could take a crack at that first. I mean, we're very familiar with Fairspot, and it is a great deal for customers. I mean, I can tell you, obviously, we do a lot of competitive intelligence. We've done mystery shopping where we'll compare and say, let's take an address that we would send to, and then let's see, let's go in and put an order. I actually did this with my parents' houses. They have a miner on their way from Emrit, and their address was rejected from Fairspot. Now, granted, those are a couple of different examples. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone wouldn't be able to get a hotspot from Fairspot. But my interpretation and belief from doing the competitive research is that they are very methodical in terms of who they're giving these free hotspots out. I know that they're asking some very specific screening questions that are trying to filter people, which is completely fair because he's investing a significant amount of money in the hardware, and I understand that he wants to make sure that that's deployed right. I think they also are offering, some installation and troubleshooting services on site. I could be wrong. I believe so, which is also not inexpensive. I think the overall question I would have is economically, it probably works if you are really selective with where you deploy them. And I think it also holds back the scale of what they're able to do with the community at Emrit. And, we see ourselves as a distributed blockchain infrastructure company where Helium is the project that we're supporting right now, but we're already working on another project you're probably familiar with, PlanetWatch, and we're already deploying PlanetWatch sensors in Europe, and we're starting to do that in this quarter in North America. And, we foresee us offering our hosts other blockchain projects that are similar to Helium and PlanetWatch that might be in the storage space, in edge computing. So really, we're kind of using Helium to kind of prove out this distributed blockchain infrastructure model, which ultimately is really about like driving Web3. And everybody's like, Web3, what is Web3? This and that. We think Helium is probably the best example or the most successful real world example of a Web3 application. So when we see the long-term vision of Emrit, which I think is a bit different than 𝗨spot, is we ultimately want to be a blockchain infrastructure company that is actually offering multiple Web3 applications where, we have, some things in R&D under works where we're looking at actually having single pieces of hardware actually mine multiple cryptocurrencies at the same time. So, what I would say is everybody needs to make a decision. I mean, look, if I can get a 𝗨spot device and get a 70% split, I would absolutely consider it. I think the growth of the Helium network, there's certainly room for quite a few players, and we certainly welcome the competition. But from an Emrit's perspective, we think a 50-50 model, the way that we're doing it. And frankly, we've learned a lot from deployments where we want our host to put a little bit of skin in the game because you have situations. And I mean, I was interacting with a new customer who was having some problems setting up his device. And his attitude was, well, you sent me the device for free. I'm going to throw it out for free, which is heartbreaking to us. And, we had asked him if he could return it. But, putting a little bit of the skin in the game, we think, as opposed to, and granted, we're looking at, density and all these different factors. But we think that if our model will actually attract the right kinds of hosts that are really in Helium for the long term. And that's really what we're trying to do.
How much loss have you guys had then? Because I can't imagine that's the only customer who's thought that. Like, I got this for free, it's not working, I'm going to throw it away. For you guys, it's probably a significant loss. Can you talk about
I mean, I could tell you some of the things that are heartbreaking. I mean, clearly we get emails from people who end up with an Emrit device that they bought on the secondary market. Which is really challenging because we have proprietary firmware within our devices that make them a cool spot. And there's a lot of cool, diagnostics tools that we're going to be rolling out that are going to help our host optimize their earnings. But it also is tying the wallet, our Emrit wallet, to that machine. So really, you can't sell them on the secondary market. I mean, it's against the OEM's policy.
So if they sell, there's no way around that. There's no way if someone buys one on eBay.
It's heartbreaking because we'd love to help these people and we appreciate the fact that they unfortunately got ripped off. But that's one instance of what we've seen. I mean, I would say the vast majority of our hosts keep their miners online. It tends to be
it's always the 80-20 thing, right? 80% of your customers are totally fine and they get it and they understand the whole deal. And then 20% of the customers don't get it for whatever reason. Sometimes they don't know the information. Sometimes there's a very few percent of just intractable people who just don't give a shit and the world doesn't work well enough for them.
Yeah, and
we've all got to deal with that. Right?
And I think the psychology of them, being that I am a marketer, the way that I think about it is we want, again, to lower the barrier entry for someone to come into Helium. And, I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is interesting. I'll try this out. Doesn't cost me anything. So I can understand where if the machine is earning nothing and a lot of people stuck in relay mode and they're like, what's the point of keeping this on? So, I would say it's the cost of doing business to us. That's always.
Is there like an asset recovery team that you guys have where you're looking at your bottom performers and reaching out to them and saying, hey, why don't you guys send those back? We'll give you $100 or whatever it is that the offer is. Are you guys? I'm assuming you're doing something.
Yeah, no,
like
certainly
that.
we do have a customer service team that does try and recover. I mean, but we don't try and recover automatically. What we first try and do is help the host to get the machine back online and earning. That's our first goal. The reality is sometimes that doesn't work, and we will try and recover the device. Obviously, we can't send people to host's house to collect them, nor would we have any interest in doing that.
I think it's just.
But I would say there are a lot of hosts that do return the devices, and when that happens, we bring them back, we'll recondition them, and if we can deploy them out to other customers, we will absolutely do that.
Cool. Okay, I want to end on something you said that I thought was really cool for the community, but I'm going to hit on one last thing that maybe I'm missing a jump here, is that if someone buys a 𝗚𝗿𝗶 and it doesn't work for them and they sell it on eBay and that second buyer can't use it because the wallet is tied to it, how is it that someone can send their hotspot back to you guys and you can connect it to a new wallet? Is there something where you're just going into the hardware and resetting the whole device, or is it something else?
I will be completely honest with you. I don't know all of the mechanics of that process. They are absolutely reconditioned. What I could tell you is some of them we might be upgrading the SD cards. As you know, a lot of the older units.
Okay. So there's like some internal tech geekery, but that seems reasonable.
Exactly.
The last thing that I'd like to hit is something that you said that I want to make sure we open up a little bit, and that is Emrit is a big company, probably the biggest helium host out there. And my guess would be by a factor of 10. I could be totally wrong on that, but it's not like close. I don't know of anyone that's doing bigger deployments, and I've worked with some pretty big customers. What you guys are doing with that power and responsibility seems to me to be pretty cool, in the sense of you are targeting areas of the network that are underserved and saying, hey, let's get some hotspots in there, and let's get enough hotspots in there that they can earn. And it's not just putting a lone wolf in the middle of Montana just to have 100 kilometers of coverage in the middle of Montana. You're saying, let's figure out a way to do a good job by everyone, to cover whatever Montana or Wyoming or wherever the state is, it doesn't have a ton of hotspots, and also to make sure those hosts are getting repaid. I don't want to skip over that as like, oh, that's kind of a minor beneficial thing. That's a major benefit to the network to have a player as big as you guys thinking in that way. Is there anything else that you're doing along those lines where it's a strategic effort that may just be missed by the average Emrit or hotspot owner or user?
Yeah, look, I think I can take that up, and then that is,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that Emrit does, right? We are right now focusing on helium, but as we become even bigger from here, we are going to be partnering with a few other additional sort of blockchain partners, right? There will be always one thing that is in common with all these blockchain partners, and then that is they have some kind of utility that is good for the community, right? So effectively, first of all, on the helium front, because that is the main question. That is why we are mainly talking about. We are looking into different parts of the world, how we could actually expand our community into, so like it's not just like US and a few countries in Europe and things like that, but what about Southeast Asia? What about Africa, where they really can use this kind of service? How do we penetrate into that kind of market? We are definitely looking into that. So it's like the sustainability of the business, right? I mean, how can we actually make this more sustainable for the world than it already is? That's something that we are definitely looking into, and definitely talking to different potential strategic partners who can actually help us to extend our business potentially to that direction. And then on top of that, as Emrit grows, we are only looking at the blockchain partners that do provide similar kind of sustainability or sort of environmental kind of shtick that we can bring to the community. So those are those are definitely two different aspects of the question that you just asked that I like to cover.
Yeah, so there's not just the strategic piece on helium. There's strategic pieces on other projects coming forward, and your focus, if I'm hearing this right, is on projects that offer both utility and some kind of, environmental benefit.
Absolutely.
Whether that's Planet Watch with the air quality sensors or whatever else is out there, the weather stuff. Cool. Super cool. Anything else before we wrap up? I think we covered all the questions that I had. The whole thing seems pretty reasonable to me. Anything else you guys want to add before we close it out?
I think I will say, because one of the purposes of this particular meeting call was really so that we can address any questions that the community might have, right? So I think one thing that I like to say is, yeah, there might be some other competitors and participants in the industry. There might be some other ways to do the business. But, in my opinion, at the end of the day, when you want to do some business with some company, some people, you really do the business because you really believe in that company's mission. You really believe in the people that are behind the scene, right? So if whenever in doubt, I like to say, come and meet with us. Andrew is on Discord like every day, every hour of every day, right? With his team. I mean, I am not so much in the front, sort of like, in the front line on a day-to-day basis, but I actually do make a fair appearance in the sort of like a scene like this to kind of, because financial literacy and financial transparency, some of the things that I really value. And then I really actually take it up to myself to make sure that I can address this to the community. So I make a fair appearance to come and meet with us. And then if there are any questions that you might have, just, come and meet with us. See it yourself if we are trustworthy for your money.
Yeah. Wow, cool. Dig it, Andrew. Anything you want to put a bow on that thing? That's pretty good.
I mean, first, Nick, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to talk about Emrit and the helium community. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about it. That's why I'm on Discord all the time, mixing it up with our hosts. And what I would say is I'm personally extremely excited about what Emrit's doing, the larger helium community, and the projects that we have, are incubating as we speak. And, what I would say is with our new offerings for our hosts, and we're trying to be fair to our current hosts who've been with us for a while, as well as the new hosts that are coming on, we really want to have an environment of, advice, mentorship, and really helping people along, just as you are doing a fantastic job with the community, so that, helium mining is a fun, activity. When I think about it, when I first started doing it, I originally was like, oh, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. But it's kind of fun to tinker with new technology, particularly stuff that's so cutting edge and Web3. And, people talk about what is Web3? People are talking about. We're doing it, and we're doing it with our host on a daily basis. The future is here. It's going to take a while for us to get to a completely decentralized internet. Maybe it'll take 5 years, maybe it'll take 25, but it is happening now. And it's quite exciting to be on the leading edge of that technology. So, I really welcome, the folks out there in the helium community. You have hotspots, you want to add more, come check us out. We think that, if you're the right kind of host and you are long on helium, you absolutely have a home at Emrit.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
for inviting us today.